Master your mind under pressure. Think clearly, decide wisely, win consistently. Published by the Growth Mind Audiobook. Introduction. Stop for a moment and think about the biggest opportunities and challenges of your life. The moments that changed everything were not the easy ones. They were the moments when the pressure was highest. The moments when fear whispered that you were not ready. The moments when uncertainty clouded your judgment. The moments when one decision had the power to move your life forward or hold you back for years. Pressure is the ultimate test of character. Anyone can stay positive when life is easy. Anyone can feel confident when everything is going according to plan. Anyone can make good decisions when there is no risk, no uncertainty, and no possibility of failure. But when the stakes are high, when the clock is ticking, when the outcome matters, that is when your mind is truly tested, and that is where most people lose. They allow fear to control their actions. They let emotions overpower logic. They hesitate when they should act. They overthink when they should decide. They surrender their power to circumstances they cannot control. You are here because you want something different. You want to become the person who stays calm while others panic. The person who thinks clearly while others become overwhelmed. The person who takes decisive action while others remain frozen by doubt. The person who turns pressure into power and challenges into victories. That transformation begins with mastering your mind. The truth is simple. Your greatest battles will never be fought in the outside world. They will be fought inside your own head. Every victory begins with a decision. Every breakthrough begins with a mindset. Every extraordinary achievement begins when you refuse to let fear, stress, or uncertainty dictate your future. Throughout this audiobook, you will learn how to control your emotions, sharpen your focus, strengthen your confidence, and make better decisions under pressure. You will develop the mental toughness required to perform at your best when it matters most. You will learn how to stay composed in chaos, confident in uncertainty, and effective in adversity. Do not listen to these lessons passively. Challenge yourself. Apply what you learn. Practice the principles. Build the habits. Strengthen your mind every day. Because life will test you. Pressure will find you. Challenges will come. The question is not whether difficult moments will arrive. The question is who you will become when they do. Starting today, make a decision. Refuse to be controlled by fear. Refuse to be defeated by pressure. Refuse to settle for less than your potential. Stand up. Take control. Master your mind. And when pressure arrives, meet it with clarity, confidence, and strength. Your journey begins now. Chapter 1. Take control before pressure takes control. Pressure does not arrive with a warning. It shows up unexpectedly, often at the moments when the stakes are highest. A difficult decision, a sudden setback, a demanding deadline, a financial challenge, a relationship conflict, or an opportunity that could change your future forever. In those moments, many people feel as if they have lost control. Their minds race, emotions take over, and fear begins to dictate their actions. But the truth is that pressure itself is not the problem. The real problem is what happens inside your mind when pressure appears. Most people spend their lives trying to control external circumstances. They want better conditions, fewer obstacles, and easier situations. Yet the most successful individuals understand something different. They know that true power comes from controlling themselves, not their circumstances. They understand that while they cannot always control what happens to them, they can always control how they respond. This is the first principle of mental mastery. Take control before pressure takes control of you. Imagine a ship caught in a violent storm. The captain cannot stop the wind, calm the waves, or change the weather. However, the captain can control the ship's direction, make adjustments, and keep moving toward the destination. Life works the same way. You cannot eliminate every challenge, but you can learn to steer your mind regardless of the conditions around you. The first step is awareness. Most people operate on autopilot. When pressure appears, they react automatically. They become angry, anxious, frustrated, or overwhelmed without ever questioning why. Their emotions take control before their minds have a chance to respond. If you want to master pressure, you must first become aware of your patterns. Pay attention to what happens when stress enters your life. Do you overthink? Do you procrastinate? Do you become defensive? Do you avoid difficult conversations? Do you assume the worst possible outcome? Your reactions are not random. They are habits that have been repeated so many times that they now feel automatic. The good news is that habits can be changed. Every time you become aware of an unhelpful reaction, you create an opportunity to replace it with a stronger response. Awareness gives you a choice, and every meaningful change begins with a choice. The next step is learning to pause. When pressure strikes, the natural instinct is to react immediately. Fear demands action. Anxiety demands certainty. Anger demands expression. But reacting without thinking often creates bigger problems than the pressure itself. Strong-minded people understand the power of a pause. A pause creates space between the event and the response. In that space, you regain control. Instead of being driven by emotion, you can choose your actions deliberately. A few seconds of calm thinking can prevent hours, days, or even years of regret. The pause does not make you weak. It makes you powerful. When you pause, you interrupt the cycle of emotional reactions. You remind yourself that you are in control. You shift from being a victim of circumstances to being the leader of your own mind. Another important principle is accepting reality quickly. Many people waste enormous amounts of energy fighting reality. They complain about situations they cannot change. They wish things were different. They focus on what should have happened instead of dealing with what actually happened. This creates frustration, resentment, and helplessness. Mental strength begins when you stop arguing with reality and start responding to it. Acceptance does not mean you like the situation. It does not mean you approve of it. It simply means you recognize the facts and choose to work with them instead of against them. The faster you accept reality, the faster you can take effective action. Remember this: pressure does not create your character. Pressure reveals your character. When circumstances become difficult, your habits are exposed. Your mindset is tested. Your level of discipline becomes visible. This is why pressure can be one of your greatest teachers. It shows you exactly where you need to grow. Instead of fearing pressure, use it as feedback. Ask yourself, what is this situation teaching me? What weakness is it exposing? What strength can I develop through this challenge? Every challenge contains a lesson. Every setback contains an opportunity to become stronger. Every pressure-filled moment is a chance to train your mind. Starting today, make a commitment to yourself. Stop waiting for life to become easier. Stop hoping that pressure will disappear. Instead, focus on becoming stronger than the pressure you face. Take ownership of your thoughts. Become aware of your reactions. Pause before responding. Accept reality quickly. Choose your actions deliberately, because the moment you learn to control yourself, pressure loses much of its power over you. And that is where true mental mastery begins. Chapter 2. Slow down your mind to speed up your results. One of the greatest misconceptions about success is the belief that faster is always better. We live in a world that celebrates speed. People want instant results, immediate answers, and quick decisions. They rush from one task to another, believing that constant movement equals progress. Yet, when pressure enters the picture, speed without clarity becomes dangerous. Many of the worst decisions people make are not made because they lack intelligence. They are made because they think too quickly under pressure. Fear accelerates their thoughts. Anxiety pushes them to react. Stress convinces them that they must do something immediately, even when the best action is to pause and think. The truth is simple. When pressure rises, your first responsibility is not to move faster. It is to think better. The most effective leaders, athletes, entrepreneurs, and performers understand this principle. When everyone around them is panicking, they slow down mentally. While others are overwhelmed by emotions, they focus on facts. While others rush into action, they take a moment to gain clarity. This ability gives them an enormous advantage. Imagine driving a car through thick fog. If visibility suddenly drops, pressing harder on the accelerator does not help. In fact, it increases the likelihood of a crash. The intelligent response is to slow down, focus carefully, and move forward with greater awareness. Pressure creates a similar kind of fog in the mind. When emotions become intense, your ability to think clearly decreases. Problems appear bigger than they really are. Risks seem more threatening. Decisions feel more urgent. In this state, your mind is vulnerable to mistakes. That is why slowing down your thinking is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. Slowing down does not mean becoming passive. It does not mean avoiding action. It means creating enough mental space to separate emotion from judgment. It means refusing to allow panic to become your decision maker. The first step is recognizing when your mind is speeding up. Pay attention to your thoughts during stressful situations. Notice how quickly your mind jumps from one concern to another. Observe how easily it creates worst-case scenarios. A single challenge can suddenly become a disaster in your imagination. This mental acceleration is often automatic, but it is not unavoidable. The moment you notice it happening, take control of your attention. Focus on what is actually happening rather than what you fear might happen. Replace assumptions with facts. Replace emotional predictions with objective observations. Ask yourself simple questions. What do I know for certain? What is the actual problem? What options are available to me? What is the next best step? These questions force your mind to slow down and engage in rational thinking. They shift your attention away from emotional reactions and toward practical solutions. Another powerful strategy is controlling your breathing. Your mind and body are deeply connected. When you become stressed, your breathing often becomes shallow and rapid. This sends signals to your brain that reinforce feelings of anxiety and urgency. The result is even more mental chaos. By slowing your breathing, you can calm your nervous system and regain control. Take a deep breath. Hold it briefly. Exhale slowly. Repeat the process several times. This simple action creates a powerful shift in your mental state. It reminds your brain that you are safe, capable, and in control. Many high performers use this technique before important presentations, competitions, negotiations, and difficult conversations. They understand that controlling their physiology helps them control their psychology. Equally important is learning to resist the pressure of immediate answers. Many people believe they must solve every problem instantly. They feel uncomfortable with uncertainty, so they rush toward conclusions. Unfortunately, rushed conclusions often create unnecessary problems. Wisdom requires patience. Not every question needs an immediate answer. Not every challenge requires an instant solution. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is gather more information, gain a broader perspective, and think carefully before acting. The quality of your decisions determines the quality of your results, and quality thinking rarely happens in a rushed state of mind. Remember that calm thinking is not weakness, it is strength. Anyone can react emotionally. Anyone can panic. Anyone can allow pressure to dictate their actions, but it takes discipline to remain composed when circumstances become difficult. It takes mental strength to pause when everyone else is rushing. It takes confidence to think clearly when others are overwhelmed. The ability to slow down your mind is one of the foundations of mental mastery. It allows you to see opportunities that others miss. It helps you avoid mistakes that others make. Most importantly, it gives you the power to act from clarity rather than fear. As you move forward, practice slowing your mind whenever pressure appears. Observe your thoughts. Control your breathing. Focus on facts. Ask better questions. Refuse to let urgency destroy your judgment. Because when you learn to slow down mentally, something remarkable happens. Your decisions improve. Your confidence grows, your performance increases, and while everyone else is reacting to pressure, you are using pressure as an opportunity to think, act, and win more effectively than ever before. Chapter 3. Eliminate emotional overreactions. One of the biggest obstacles to clear thinking under pressure is not the challenge itself. It is the emotional reaction that follows. A single setback can trigger frustration. A criticism can spark anger. An unexpected problem can create anxiety. Within seconds, emotions can become so powerful that they take control of your thoughts, decisions, and actions. This is why mastering your emotions is essential if you want to master pressure. Emotions are not the enemy. In fact, emotions are an important part of being human. They provide information, help us connect with others, and often motivate us to take action. The problem begins when emotions stop being advisors and start becoming decision makers. Many people allow temporary emotions to make permanent decisions. They send messages they later regret. They quit too soon because they feel discouraged. They avoid opportunities because they feel afraid. They damage relationships because they react in anger. In each case, the emotion itself is not the problem. The problem is allowing that emotion to take control. The strongest people are not those who never experience fear, frustration, or disappointment. They are those who feel these emotions without becoming controlled by them. Think about a professional athlete competing in a championship game. Mistakes happen. Referees make questionable calls. Opponents create pressure. The crowd becomes loud and distracting. If the athlete reacts emotionally to every challenge, performance quickly declines. Focus disappears. Judgment weakens. Confidence collapses. The same principle applies to life. Every day, situations will test your emotional control. Someone may criticize you unfairly. A project may not go as planned. An opportunity may fall apart. A goal may take longer to achieve than expected. The question is not whether these moments will happen. The question is how you will respond when they do. The first step to eliminating emotional overreactions is learning to recognize emotional triggers. Everyone has them. Some people are triggered by criticism. Others are triggered by rejection, uncertainty, failure, disrespect, or unexpected change. These triggers activate automatic emotional responses that often occur before conscious thinking begins. Pay attention to the situations that consistently affect your emotions. What makes you angry? What makes you anxious? What causes you to lose focus or confidence? The more aware you become of your triggers, the more control you gain over your responses. Awareness transforms automatic reactions into conscious choices. The next step is learning to separate facts from feelings. This is one of the most important mental skills you can develop. When emotions become intense, they often distort reality. Fear tells you that failure is certain. Anger convinces you that someone is completely wrong. Anxiety makes problems appear larger than they actually are. Disappointment whispers that your efforts are pointless. But feelings are not facts. Just because you feel afraid does not mean you are in danger. Just because you feel discouraged does not mean you cannot succeed. Just because you feel overwhelmed does not mean the situation is impossible. Strong-minded individuals train themselves to question emotional conclusions. Instead of immediately believing every thought that enters their minds, they ask, "What are the facts?" This simple question can instantly reduce emotional intensity and restore clarity. Another powerful strategy is learning to delay your reaction. Most emotional mistakes happen because people react too quickly. An angry email, a defensive comment, an impulsive decision, a moment of frustration that creates lasting consequences. Mental strength often means refusing to react immediately. Give yourself time. Take a walk. Breathe deeply. Step away from the situation if necessary. Allow your emotions to settle before making important decisions. Time has a remarkable ability to reduce emotional intensity and improve judgment. Many problems that seem overwhelming in the moment appear manageable after a period of calm reflection. It is also important to understand that emotional control is a skill developed through practice. You will not become emotionally disciplined overnight. There will be moments when frustration gets the better of you. There will be days when fear feels overwhelming. There will be situations that challenge your patience and composure. That is normal. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. Each time you pause before reacting, you become stronger. Each time you choose logic over impulse, you build greater discipline. Each time you respond thoughtfully instead of emotionally, you strengthen your ability to perform under pressure. Remember that emotional resilience is not about suppressing emotions. It is about managing them effectively. Feel the emotion, acknowledge it, learn from it. But do not surrender control to it. Your emotions should serve you, not control you. As you continue this journey, make a commitment to become the calmest person in difficult situations. Refuse to let temporary emotions dictate your actions. Refuse to let fear, anger, or frustration steal your focus. Pause before reacting. Separate facts from feelings. Question emotional assumptions. Respond with intention rather than impulse, because every time you master your emotions, you strengthen your mind. And when your mind becomes stronger than your emotions, pressure loses one of its most powerful weapons against you. That is when you begin to think clearly, decide wisely, and perform at your highest level, no matter what challenges stand in your way. Chapter 4. Focus on what you can control. One of the fastest ways to lose your peace of mind is to focus on things you cannot control. Many people spend enormous amounts of time worrying about events that have not happened, circumstances they cannot change, and outcomes they cannot guarantee. They replay past mistakes, obsess over uncertain futures, and become frustrated by the actions of other people. As a result, their energy is drained, their focus is scattered, and their performance suffers. If you want to think clearly under pressure, you must learn one of the most important principles of mental strength. Focus on what you can control and let go of what you cannot. This sounds simple, but it is one of the most difficult habits to develop. When pressure appears, the mind naturally seeks certainty. It wants guarantees. It wants complete control over every variable. But life does not work that way. No matter how intelligent, talented, or prepared you are, there will always be factors outside your control. You cannot control the economy. You cannot control the weather. You cannot control the opinions of other people. You cannot control unexpected setbacks. You cannot control every outcome. The more you fight this reality, the more frustrated and powerless you become. Imagine trying to push against a mountain. No matter how hard you try, the mountain will not move. Yet many people do exactly this with their mental energy. They spend hours worrying about situations they cannot influence. They become emotionally exhausted fighting battles that cannot be won. Mental mastery begins when you stop wasting energy on what is beyond your control. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening?" ask, "What can I do about it?" Instead of focusing on what others should do, focus on what you can do. Instead of obsessing over the outcome, focus on your actions. This shift changes everything. The strongest individuals understand that their power exists in their response, not in their circumstances. Consider two people facing the same challenge. One spends days complaining, worrying, and blaming external factors. The other accepts the situation and immediately begins looking for solutions. Both face the same obstacle, but their results are completely different. Why? Because one focuses on what cannot be controlled while the other focuses on what can. Your attention is one of your most valuable resources. Wherever your attention goes, your energy follows. If your attention is consumed by things outside your control, your energy becomes trapped there as well. But when your attention is directed toward productive action, your energy becomes a force for progress. This is why successful people are often remarkably calm during difficult situations. They are not calm because they have fewer problems. They are calm because they know where to focus. When others are panicking about uncertainty, they focus on preparation. When others are blaming circumstances, they focus on improvement. When others are complaining about obstacles, they focus on solutions. Their attention remains fixed on the things they can influence. One practical way to develop this habit is by separating every challenge into two categories. The first category contains things you cannot control. The second category contains things you can control. For example, imagine you are preparing for an important presentation. You cannot control how every audience member will react. You cannot control unexpected technical issues. You cannot control every question that might be asked. But you can control your preparation. You can control your effort. You can control your attitude. You can control how you respond if something goes wrong. The moment you focus on these controllable factors, your confidence increases. Why? Because you are directing your energy towards something productive rather than something uncertain. Another powerful benefit of focusing on what you can control is that it reduces anxiety. Anxiety often grows when the mind becomes obsessed with possibilities and outcomes. It asks endless questions. What if I fail? What if things go wrong? What if people judge me? What if I am not good enough? These questions create fear because they focus on things that are not fully within your control. A better question is this: what can I do right now? That question immediately brings your attention back to the present moment. It shifts your focus from worry to action. It transforms helplessness into responsibility. And responsibility is where personal power begins. Remember that every great achievement is built one controllable action at a time. No one controls the entire journey. No one controls every outcome. No one controls every challenge. But successful people consistently control their effort, their attitude, their discipline, and their response. That is enough. As you move forward, practice this principle daily. Whenever pressure appears, ask yourself what is within your control. Direct your energy there. Refuse to waste mental strength on things you cannot change. Control your thoughts. Control your actions. Control your habits. Control your response. Because when you stop fighting what you cannot control, you gain the freedom to master what you can. And that is where resilience, confidence, and lasting success are built. The more you focus on what you can control, the less power pressure has over your mind. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by circumstances, you become empowered by action. Instead of becoming trapped by uncertainty, you move forward with purpose. And that is how strong minds continue winning, even when conditions are far from perfect. Chapter 5. Replace panic with purposeful action. When pressure rises, most people make a critical mistake. They freeze, overthink, or panic. Their mind becomes overloaded with uncertainty, fear, and doubt. Instead of moving forward, they become stuck in analysis, emotional reaction, or hesitation. In these moments, pressure does not defeat them directly. Their lack of action does. Panic is not caused by the situation itself. Panic is caused by the absence of direction. When the mind does not know what to do next, it creates chaos. It fills the gap with fear, worst-case scenarios, and emotional noise. That is why, in high-pressure moments, the most powerful shift you can make is simple. Replace panic with purposeful action. Action is one of the fastest ways to regain control of your mind. When you act, even in a small way, you interrupt the cycle of fear. You move from imagination to reality. You shift from uncertainty to progress. You stop thinking about what might go wrong and start focusing on what can be done right now. This is how strong individuals operate under pressure. They do not wait for fear to disappear before they act. They act in order to reduce fear. Imagine standing in front of a chaotic situation where everything feels overwhelming. Your mind is racing, your emotions are rising, your thoughts are scattered. In that moment, if you stay still, the pressure grows stronger. But if you take one small, deliberate action, everything begins to change. Action creates clarity. Clarity reduces fear. And reduced fear leads to better decisions. This is why even small steps matter. You do not need to solve the entire problem immediately. You only need to take the next step. Many people fail under pressure because they think too far ahead. They look at the entire situation and feel overwhelmed by its size. They try to solve everything at once, and when they cannot, they freeze. But high performers break problems down into manageable actions. Instead of asking, "How do I fix everything?" they ask, "What is the next step I can take right now?" This question changes everything. It brings the mind back to the present moment. It removes the weight of the entire problem and replaces it with focus on immediate action. Purposeful action does not require perfect conditions. It requires direction. Even imperfect action is better than no action at all, because inaction feeds fear, while action weakens it. Every step forward builds momentum, and momentum is one of the most powerful forces in pressure situations. Think about a time when you felt stuck. The longer you stayed inactive, the worse the situation felt. The mind started to exaggerate the problem. Doubt increased, confidence decreased. But the moment you started doing something, even something small, your mindset began to shift. This is not coincidence. It is psychology. The human brain is designed to respond to movement. Action signals progress. Progress signals control. Control reduces fear. That is why purposeful action is more than just behavior. It is a mental strategy. Another important principle is understanding that action does not have to be perfect to be effective. Many people delay action because they are waiting for the right moment or the perfect plan. But under pressure, perfection is a trap. It creates hesitation. It increases anxiety. It delays progress. Clarity often comes after action, not before it. You learn by doing. You adjust by moving. You improve by engaging with reality instead of overthinking it. When pressure is high, your goal is not to eliminate uncertainty. Your goal is to move forward despite it. One of the most effective ways to replace panic with action is to simplify your focus. Instead of trying to manage everything at once, narrow your attention to one clear task. Ask yourself, what is the single most useful thing I can do right now? Then do it immediately. This approach prevents overwhelm. It keeps your mind grounded. It turns complexity into simplicity, and it builds confidence through execution. Another powerful shift is reframing pressure as a signal for action. Instead of viewing stress as a warning to stop, see it as a reminder to engage. Pressure does not mean you are failing. It means something important requires your attention, and attention should lead to action. When you adopt this mindset, pressure becomes less of a threat and more of a trigger for performance. As you practice this principle, you will notice something important. The more you act under pressure, the less intimidating pressure becomes. Your mind begins to trust your ability to respond. Confidence builds through repetition. Fear loses its power because you have trained yourself to move forward instead of freezing. Remember this: successful people are not those who never feel panic. They are those who refuse to stay in panic. They act quickly, they act clearly, they act purposefully. And through action, they regain control of their mind and situation. From today onward, make this your rule. When pressure appears, do not wait for perfect clarity. Do not wait for fear to disappear. Do not wait for certainty. Take one step, then another. Keep moving forward with purpose, because every action you take under pressure weakens fear, strengthens clarity, and builds momentum. And momentum is what turns chaos into control, and control into consistent success. Chapter 6. Make decisions with confidence and clarity. Every moment under pressure eventually leads to one critical point, a decision. Whether it is a small choice or a life-changing one, your ability to decide clearly and confidently determines your outcome more than almost anything else. Pressure does not just test your emotions, it tests your judgment. And when judgment becomes unclear, even simple decisions can feel overwhelming. Most people struggle with decision-making under pressure because they fear making the wrong choice. They overanalyze, overthink, and delay action in search of certainty that never fully arrives. In doing so, they fall into a trap where indecision becomes more damaging than a wrong decision. The reality is simple. You will never have perfect information. You will never feel 100% certain, and you will never eliminate all risk. Waiting for complete clarity is often just another form of hesitation disguised as caution. Strong decision makers understand this truth. They know that clarity does not come before action, it comes through action. Under pressure, your goal is not to eliminate uncertainty. Your goal is to make the best possible decision with the information available, then commit fully to it. Indecision drains energy. Every time you hesitate, your mind replays possibilities, fears, and outcomes. This creates mental fatigue and weakens confidence. But once you decide, even if the decision is imperfect, your mind becomes focused. Energy is no longer wasted on internal debate. It is redirected toward execution. This is why decisive people often outperform more intelligent but hesitant individuals. It is not because they always choose perfectly, it is because they move forward while others remain stuck in analysis. One of the most powerful habits you can develop is setting a time limit for decisions. When faced with pressure, give yourself a clear boundary, decide within that time frame, and commit. This prevents endless overthinking and forces your mind to focus on what truly matters. Another key principle is separating reversible decisions from irreversible ones. Many decisions are not as permanent as they feel. If a decision can be adjusted later, there is no need for excessive fear. You can correct your course as you move forward. Understanding this reduces pressure and increases confidence. Even in cases where decisions feel significant, remember that no single choice defines your entire future. Life is a series of adjustments, not a single moment of perfection. The fear of permanent failure often exaggerates the importance of one decision. Clarity also improves when you shift your focus from emotion to logic. Under pressure, emotions tend to amplify uncertainty. Fear highlights risks. Doubt magnifies weaknesses. Anxiety creates worst-case scenarios. If you rely only on emotions, decision-making becomes unstable. Instead, ground yourself in facts. Ask what is objectively true. Identify what you know, what you do not know, and what matters most in this situation. This helps reduce emotional distortion and brings structure to your thinking. Another important strategy is focusing on the next step rather than the entire outcome. When you try to predict every possible result, your mind becomes overwhelmed. But when you focus on the immediate decision in front of you, complexity becomes manageable. You do not need to solve the entire future. You only need to decide the next action. Confidence in decision-making is not about being fearless. It is about trusting your ability to adjust after you decide. Many people assume confidence means certainty, but true confidence is the ability to move forward even when uncertainty exists. The more decisions you make, the more confidence you build. Hesitation weakens confidence, while action strengthens it. Each decision becomes a learning experience that improves your future judgment. It is also important to accept that mistakes are part of growth. No one makes perfect decisions consistently. Even the most successful people have made wrong choices under pressure. What separates them is not perfection, but recovery. They adjust quickly, learn from outcomes, and continue moving forward. When you remove the fear of mistakes, decision-making becomes easier. You stop trying to avoid failure at all costs and start focusing on making the best possible choice in the moment. This shift is powerful because fear of failure is one of the biggest barriers to clarity. Once that fear is reduced, your thinking becomes sharper, faster, and more effective. To build decision-making strength, practice small, quick decisions in daily life. Train yourself to choose without unnecessary delay. Over time, this builds mental agility and reduces hesitation in high-pressure situations. Remember this. Hesitation creates more problems than wrong decisions ever will. A wrong decision can be corrected. Indecision keeps you stuck. As you apply this principle, you will notice a transformation. You will begin to trust your judgment more. You will feel less overwhelmed by pressure. You will stop waiting for perfect clarity and start creating clarity through action. Decisiveness is not about rushing. It is about trusting yourself to act with the best available information, then adapting as needed. When you combine clarity with confidence, pressure loses its power to control you. Instead of freezing under uncertainty, you move forward with purpose. And that is how strong minds think clearly, decide wisely, and continue winning even when conditions are uncertain. Chapter 7. Challenge. Fear before fear controls you. Fear is one of the most powerful forces that influences human behavior under pressure. It can appear suddenly, often without warning, and when it does, it has the ability to distort thinking, slow decision-making, and paralyze action. Many people believe fear is a sign that something is wrong. In reality, fear is often a signal that something important is happening. The problem is not fear itself. The problem is allowing fear to make decisions for you. When pressure increases, fear naturally rises with it. The mind begins to imagine negative outcomes. It creates scenarios of failure, embarrassment, loss, or rejection. These thoughts feel real in the moment, even though they are only predictions, not facts. If left unchecked, fear can grow until it completely dominates your thinking. That is why successful individuals do not wait for fear to disappear before they act. They confront it directly. Challenging fear before it controls you means taking conscious control of your response the moment fear appears. Instead of avoiding it or running from it, you face it, examine it, and reduce its influence. The first step in overcoming fear is understanding its nature. Fear is not always based on reality. It is often based on imagination. Your mind takes limited information and expands it into worst-case scenarios. A small uncertainty becomes a major threat. A minor setback becomes a total failure. A single mistake becomes a permanent consequence. But in most cases, these fears never fully materialize. This is why awareness is so important. When you recognize that fear is a mental projection rather than a guaranteed outcome, you begin to weaken its power. You stop treating it as truth and start seeing it as a possibility that may or may not happen. The second step is confronting fear directly instead of avoiding it. Avoidance strengthens fear. Every time you avoid something because of fear, you teach your mind that the fear was justified. Over time, this makes fear stronger and more controlling. On the other hand, when you face fear, you weaken it. Each time you take action despite feeling afraid, your brain learns that fear does not equal danger. It learns that you can act even when uncomfortable. This builds confidence and reduces fear's influence over time. Another powerful method is asking a simple question. What is the worst that can realistically happen? When you break fear down into its actual consequences, it often becomes much smaller than it initially appears. Most feared outcomes are not life-ending or irreversible. They are uncomfortable, temporary, and manageable. Once you realize this, fear loses much of its intensity. At the same time, it is important to ask a second question. What is the cost of not acting? This question shifts your focus from fear to opportunity. Often, the damage caused by inaction is far greater than the risk of action. Missed opportunities, delayed growth, and lost progress usually come from hesitation, not from trying and failing. Fear also loses power when you take control of your body. Physical responses such as shallow breathing, tense muscles, and a racing heartbeat can intensify fear. But by slowing your breathing, relaxing your body, and grounding yourself in the present moment, you send signals to your brain that reduce the fear response. This helps restore clarity and calm thinking. Another important principle is exposure. Fear grows in isolation and shrinks with experience. The more you expose yourself to situations that trigger fear, the more familiar they become. Over time, what once felt intimidating becomes manageable. This is how confidence is built, not by avoiding fear, but by repeatedly acting in its presence. It is also important to understand that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is action in the presence of fear. Every time you act while afraid, you strengthen your mental resilience. You train your mind to respond rather than retreat. Many people wait to feel ready before they take action, but readiness is not a feeling. It is a result of action. You become ready by doing, not by waiting. When you challenge fear consistently, something powerful begins to happen. Fear stops being a barrier and starts becoming a signal. It tells you where growth is needed. It highlights areas that require strength, preparation, and development. Instead of avoiding fear, you begin to use it as feedback. As you continue applying these principles, you will notice a shift in your mindset. Situations that once felt intimidating will begin to feel manageable. Your reaction time will improve, your confidence will grow, and your ability to think clearly under pressure will strengthen. Remember this: fear will always appear when you are doing something meaningful. It is part of growth, not a sign to stop. Your job is not to eliminate fear. Your job is to challenge it. Face it, question it, act despite it. Because every time you move forward in the presence of fear, you take back control of your mind. And when fear no longer controls your decisions, pressure loses one of its strongest weapons against you. That is where true mental strength begins. Chapter 8. Train your focus like a mental athlete. Focus is one of the most powerful mental skills you can develop under pressure. When your focus is strong, distractions lose their influence, emotions become easier to manage, and decisions become clearer. When your focus is weak, even small challenges feel overwhelming and pressure quickly takes control of your mind. Most people underestimate focus. They believe it is simply about paying attention, but true focus is much deeper. It is the ability to direct your mind intentionally and hold it steady, even when emotions, stress, and external noise are trying to pull it in different directions. Under pressure, your attention becomes scattered. Your mind jumps between possibilities, worries, and outcomes. Instead of staying grounded in the present moment, it drifts into fear of the future or regret of the past. This scattered attention is what creates confusion and poor decision-making. To master pressure, you must train your focus like a mental athlete trains their body. Athletes do not become strong by accident. They build strength through repetition, discipline, and controlled training. In the same way, mental focus is developed through consistent practice. You must train your mind to return to the present moment again and again, especially when it tries to escape into distraction or fear. The first step in building focus is awareness of distraction. Most people are not even aware when their focus breaks. They think they are thinking, but in reality, their mind is jumping rapidly between unrelated thoughts. This creates mental noise that weakens clarity. Start by noticing when your attention drifts. Pay attention to the moments when you become overwhelmed or mentally scattered. Awareness is the foundation of control. Once you become aware of distraction, the next step is learning to bring your focus back deliberately. This is where mental discipline is built. Every time your mind drifts and you bring it back, you are strengthening your ability to control attention. At first, this may feel difficult. Your mind will resist. It will wander. It will try to escape. But each return builds strength. Focus is not about never getting distracted. It is about returning faster each time you do. Another powerful technique is anchoring your attention to the present moment. Under pressure, the mind often travels into the future, imagining worst-case scenarios, or into the past, replaying mistakes. Neither of these places helps you act effectively. The present moment is where control exists. Ask yourself, what is happening right now? What needs my attention right now? What action can I take right now? These questions immediately bring your focus back to reality instead of speculation. Breathing also plays a key role in controlling focus. When your mind is under stress, your breathing often becomes shallow and irregular. This sends signals of anxiety to your brain and reduces clarity. By consciously slowing your breath, you stabilize your nervous system and improve concentration. A calm breath creates a calm mind. A calm mind creates clear focus. Another important principle is single-task focus. Many people try to handle multiple thoughts, problems, or decisions at the same time. Under pressure, this creates mental overload. The brain becomes divided, and performance drops. Instead, focus on one task, one thought, one decision at a time. Complete it, then move to the next. This structured approach reduces mental chaos and increases efficiency. Mental athletes also train their ability to ignore distractions. Distractions are not always external. Sometimes they are internal thoughts, doubts, or emotional reactions. You must learn to let these thoughts exist without giving them control over your attention. Just because a thought appears does not mean you must follow it. You can observe it, acknowledge it, and return to your focus without engaging it. This ability is essential under pressure, where negative thoughts often become louder and more frequent. Another key element of focus is clarity of purpose. When you are unclear about what matters most, your attention naturally scatters. But when you are clear about your goal, your mind has direction. Purpose acts like a filter, helping you decide what deserves attention and what does not. Under pressure, clarity becomes even more important. It reduces confusion and keeps your mind aligned with action rather than distraction. It is also important to understand that focus is a skill built over time, not a fixed trait. No one is born with perfect focus. It is developed through repetition, correction, and practice. Every moment of distraction is an opportunity to train your mind. The goal is not perfection. The goal is consistency. As you strengthen your focus, you will notice a powerful shift. Situations that once felt overwhelming will feel more manageable. Your mind will become calmer under stress. Your decisions will improve because your attention is no longer divided. Focus gives you control over your mental energy, and when you control your energy, you control your performance. Remember this: pressure thrives in a scattered mind, but it weakens in a focused one. When your attention is fragmented, pressure dominates. When your attention is directed, you regain control. Train your focus daily. Bring your mind back when it drifts. Stay anchored in the present. Eliminate unnecessary mental noise and commit to one task at a time. Because when you master your focus, you master your ability to think clearly, decide wisely, and perform consistently, even in the most demanding situations. Chapter 9. Adapt quickly when circumstances change. Life under pressure is never static. Just when you think you have a situation under control, something shifts. Plans change, expectations fail, problems evolve, and new challenges appear without warning. In these moments, your ability to adapt quickly determines whether you stay in control or fall into confusion. Most people struggle with change because they are mentally attached to their original expectations. They create a plan, a vision, or a desired outcome, and then become emotionally invested in it. When reality does not match that expectation, they resist it. They become frustrated, anxious, or even frozen. Instead of adjusting, they fight the change, which only increases pressure. But high performers think differently. They understand that adaptability is not optional, it is essential. Adaptation means responding effectively when circumstances shift. It is the ability to adjust your thinking, your strategy, and your actions without losing focus or confidence. Under pressure, this skill becomes one of your greatest advantages. The first step in adapting quickly is acceptance of change. Many people waste energy wishing things were different. They say things like, "This shouldn't have happened," or "This is not how it was supposed to go." But reality does not respond to expectations. It responds to action. When something changes, your first responsibility is to accept it as the new reality. This does not mean you approve of it or enjoy it. It simply means you stop resisting it so you can respond effectively. Resistance slows the mind. Acceptance frees it. Once you accept the situation, the next step is reassessment. You must quickly evaluate what has changed and what still remains within your control. Every shift in circumstances creates new information. Strong decision-makers do not cling to old plans. They update their thinking based on current reality. Ask yourself, what is different now? What opportunities still exist? What risks have increased? What actions are still possible? These questions help your mind transition from confusion to clarity. Adaptability also requires emotional flexibility. Under pressure, emotions often become tied to expectations. When things go wrong, disappointment arises. When plans fail, frustration appears. When uncertainty increases, anxiety grows. These emotional reactions are natural, but they can slow down your response if not managed properly. Instead of allowing emotions to anchor you to the past, use them as signals to adjust your approach. Disappointment tells you expectations were not met. Frustration tells you something needs to change. Anxiety tells you uncertainty is high and requires careful thinking. When you interpret emotions correctly, they become useful information rather than obstacles. Another key principle of adaptability is letting go of rigid thinking. Many people suffer under pressure because they believe there is only one correct way to achieve a goal. When that one path fails, they feel stuck. But in reality, there are always multiple paths forward. Flexibility in thinking allows you to find alternative solutions quickly. It opens your mind to new strategies, different approaches, and unexpected opportunities. The more flexible your thinking, the faster you recover from setbacks. One of the most effective ways to build adaptability is to train yourself to detach from specific outcomes. This does not mean you stop caring about results. It means you stop depending emotionally on one specific version of success. When your identity is tied too tightly to a single outcome, any change feels like failure. But when you remain open to multiple outcomes, you stay mentally stable even when things shift. Under pressure, speed of adjustment is critical. The faster you accept change, reassess your situation, and choose a new direction, the more control you maintain. Delayed adaptation creates confusion. Quick adaptation creates momentum. It is also important to understand that adaptation is not weakness. Many people believe that changing plans means they were wrong. But in reality, changing plans based on new information is a sign of intelligence. It shows that you are responsive, aware, and focused on results rather than ego. Strong minds are not rigid, they are responsive. Another powerful aspect of adaptability is learning to stay calm during uncertainty. When things change unexpectedly, the mind naturally seeks stability. If you panic, your thinking becomes scattered. But if you stay calm, you can evaluate the situation clearly and respond effectively. Calmness is what allows adaptation to happen smoothly. As you develop this skill, you will notice that challenges feel less overwhelming. Instead of seeing change as a threat, you will begin to see it as a normal part of progress. You will stop fearing unpredictability and start trusting your ability to handle it. Remember that no plan survives unchanged. Every goal you pursue will encounter unexpected shifts. The difference between success and failure is not the absence of change, but the ability to adjust when change occurs. As you move forward, practice adaptability in small situations. Change your plans when necessary without frustration. Adjust your approach when something is not working. Stay open to new information. Train your mind to respond instead of resist. Because when you learn to adapt quickly, pressure loses its ability to destabilize you. Instead of breaking your focus, change sharpens it. Instead of slowing you down, obstacles redirect you forward. And that is how strong minds stay steady, flexible, and effective no matter how circumstances evolve. Chapter 10. Turn pressure into performance energy. Pressure is often seen as something negative, something that creates stress, confusion, and fear. But in reality, pressure is not just a challenge, it is also a form of energy. The difference between those who break under pressure and those who excel under it is how they interpret and use that energy. When pressure rises, your body and mind respond automatically. Your heart rate increases, your senses sharpen, and your attention becomes more intense. Many people interpret these signals as anxiety or danger. As a result, they panic, hesitate, or withdraw. But high performers interpret the same signals differently. They see them as readiness, activation, and preparation for performance. This shift in perception changes everything. Turning pressure into performance energy begins with understanding that pressure itself is neutral. It is not good or bad. It simply amplifies your current mental state. If your mind is chaotic, pressure amplifies chaos. If your mind is focused, pressure amplifies focus. If your mindset is fearful, pressure amplifies fear. But if your mindset is controlled, pressure amplifies clarity and performance. This means the real work is not about eliminating pressure. It is about preparing your mind to use it. One of the most effective ways to transform pressure is through reframing. Instead of saying, "I am under pressure," you say, "My body is preparing me to perform." This small shift in language changes how your brain interprets the situation. What once felt like stress begins to feel like readiness. Elite performers in sports, business, and leadership use this principle constantly. Before a critical moment, they do not try to calm themselves into passivity. Instead, they channel their energy. They recognize that heightened arousal is not a weakness. It is a resource that must be directed, not suppressed. Another important step is learning to control the direction of your energy. Under pressure, energy is always present. The question is whether it is scattered or focused. Scattered energy leads to confusion, mistakes, and emotional reactions. Focused energy leads to precision, clarity, and strong performance. To focus your energy, you must anchor it to a specific task or objective. Instead of thinking about everything at once, narrow your attention to what matters most in the present moment. Ask yourself, what action will move me forward right now? Then direct all your mental energy toward that action. Breathing plays a key role in this transformation. When pressure increases, breathing often becomes shallow and irregular. This reinforces feelings of stress. By consciously controlling your breath, slowing it down and making it steady, you signal to your nervous system that you are in control. This stabilizes your mental state and allows you to use pressure productively rather than being overwhelmed by it. Another powerful principle is acceptance of performance energy. Many people try to fight their nervous energy because they believe it should not be there, but resisting it only increases tension. Instead, accept that this energy is part of high-stakes situations. Then, learn to direct it. Think of pressure as fuel. Fuel alone is not useful unless it is directed through a system. In the same way, energy under pressure must be channeled into focus, decision-making, and action. The difference between average performers and high performers is not the absence of nervous energy, it is the ability to harness it. Preparation also plays a critical role in converting pressure into performance. When you are well prepared, pressure feels less like a threat and more like an opportunity. Preparation builds trust in your abilities. It reduces uncertainty and increases confidence. The more prepared you are, the more effectively you can use pressure as fuel rather than fear. Another key idea is shifting your identity under pressure. Instead of seeing yourself as someone trying not to fail, see yourself as someone performing at their highest level. Identity shapes behavior. When you identify as a performer, your mind naturally begins to align with focus, discipline, and execution. It is also important to recognize that mistakes will still happen under pressure. Even the best performers make errors. The difference is that they do not let mistakes interrupt their flow. They adapt quickly, reset their focus, and continue performing. They understand that one moment does not define the entire performance. When you embrace pressure as energy rather than threat, your relationship with challenging situations changes completely. Instead of avoiding pressure, you begin to step into it. Instead of fearing high-stakes moments, you begin to prepare for them. Instead of freezing, you begin to move with intention. Over time, this builds a powerful mental association. Pressure no longer triggers fear, it triggers readiness. It signals that it is time to focus, act, and perform at your best. As you continue practicing these principles, you will notice that your confidence under pressure increases, your thinking becomes sharper, your reactions become more controlled, and your performance becomes more consistent. Remember this: pressure is not your enemy. It is energy waiting to be directed. When you learn to harness it, you stop reacting to pressure and start using it. You stop breaking under stress and start performing through it. And that is how strong minds turn pressure into power and power into consistent success. Chapter 11. Build unshakable confidence through preparation. Confidence under pressure is often misunderstood. Many people think confidence is something you either have or you do not have, something that appears naturally in certain individuals and is absent in others. But in reality, true confidence is not a personality trait. It is a byproduct of preparation. The more prepared you are, the more stable your mind becomes when pressure increases. When pressure hits, uncertainty is what creates fear. The mind starts asking questions like, what if I fail? What if I am not ready? What if something goes wrong? These questions arise because there is a gap between expectation and preparation. When you are not fully prepared, your mind fills that gap with doubt. But when preparation is strong, that gap disappears and confidence becomes natural. Preparation is not just about studying, practicing, or planning. It is about building familiarity with pressure itself. It is about training your mind to respond correctly before the real situation arrives. The more you prepare, the less your mind has to guess, and the less it has to guess, the calmer it becomes under stress. Think about high performers in any field: athletes, performers, leaders, and professionals who operate under extreme pressure do not rely on hope or motivation in critical moments. They rely on preparation. They train repeatedly so that their responses become automatic. They prepare so thoroughly that when the moment of pressure arrives, there is no confusion, only execution. This is the foundation of unshakable confidence. Preparation removes hesitation. Hesitation is one of the biggest enemies of performance under pressure. When you hesitate, your mind is divided. One part wants to act, another part fears the consequences. This internal conflict creates stress and weakens decision-making. But when you are well prepared, hesitation disappears because your mind already knows what to do. Preparation also reduces emotional instability. Under pressure, emotions become stronger when you feel uncertain. But when you are prepared, emotions stabilize because your mind trusts your ability to handle the situation. Trust in preparation replaces fear with calmness. Instead of reacting emotionally, you respond with clarity. Another important aspect of preparation is mental rehearsal. Before entering high-pressure situations, strong performers visualize possible scenarios and mentally practice their responses. They imagine challenges, obstacles, and unexpected changes, and they prepare their mindset to handle them. This mental training reduces shock when real situations occur. Nothing feels completely new or overwhelming because the mind has already experienced it internally. Preparation also builds resilience. When you prepare deeply, setbacks become less threatening. Even if something goes wrong, your mind is trained to adjust and continue. You are not relying on perfect conditions. You are relying on your ability to adapt based on your preparation. This creates a powerful sense of inner stability. One of the key differences between confident people and uncertain people is how they approach preparation. Uncertain individuals often prepare only partially, then hope things will work out. Confident individuals prepare beyond what is required. They do more than enough so that when pressure arrives, there is no room for doubt. Their confidence is not based on optimism, it is based on evidence created through effort. Another important principle is consistency. Preparation is not something you do once, it is something you repeat continuously. Each repetition strengthens your ability, sharpens your thinking, and builds deeper familiarity with pressure situations. Over time, this creates a level of competence that feels natural and effortless. When you are consistently prepared, pressure loses its ability to destabilize you. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, you feel ready. Instead of doubting yourself, you trust yourself. Instead of reacting emotionally, you act decisively. Preparation also improves focus. When you are unprepared, your mind scatters under pressure because it is trying to figure out too many things at once. But when you're prepared, your focus becomes sharper because your mind already knows the structure of what needs to be done. This clarity reduces mental noise and increases performance. It is also important to understand that preparation is not about eliminating all uncertainty. That is impossible. No matter how much you prepare, life will always present unexpected challenges. But preparation gives you something even more valuable than certainty. It gives you adaptability within structure. It gives you the ability to respond effectively, even when things do not go exactly as planned. This is why preparation creates unshakable confidence. It does not promise perfect outcomes. It guarantees readiness. As you continue developing this skill, you will begin to notice a shift in how you experience pressure. Situations that once felt intimidating will start to feel manageable. Challenges that once created anxiety will feel like opportunities to apply your preparation. Your mind will stop asking, "Am I ready?" and start saying, "I am prepared." That is the transformation preparation creates. To build this kind of confidence, you must commit to preparation in every area of your life where performance matters. Do not wait until the last moment. Do not rely on luck. Do not assume things will work out without effort. Instead, prepare early, prepare deeply, and prepare consistently. Because when preparation becomes your habit, confidence becomes your natural state. And when confidence becomes your natural state, pressure no longer controls you. You control your response, your focus, and your performance. That is how you build unshakable confidence that stands strong in every situation. Chapter 12. Strengthen your mental endurance. Pressure is not always a short burst of intensity. Often it is a long process. It comes in waves over extended periods of time, where challenges do not disappear quickly and problems do not resolve immediately. In these situations, what matters most is not just your ability to think clearly in a single moment, but your ability to remain strong over time. This is where mental endurance becomes essential. Mental endurance is the ability to stay focused, composed, and effective even when pressure is sustained. It is what allows you to continue making good decisions when fatigue sets in, when motivation drops, and when circumstances remain difficult longer than expected. Many people can perform well for short periods under pressure. They can handle urgent situations, solve immediate problems, or push through brief challenges. But when pressure continues, their performance declines, their thinking becomes slower, their emotions become heavier, and their discipline weakens. This is not because they lack intelligence or capability, but because they lack endurance. Just like physical endurance allows an athlete to perform over long distances, mental endurance allows you to perform over long periods of difficulty. It is not about bursts of effort. It is about consistency under strain. One of the key foundations of mental endurance is emotional stability over time. Under prolonged pressure, emotions naturally fluctuate. Some days you feel confident, other days you feel uncertain. Some moments bring clarity, other moments bring doubt. Mental endurance means not allowing these fluctuations to control your behavior. Instead of reacting to every emotional shift, you learn to stay anchored in your process. You continue doing what is necessary even when your feelings change. This creates consistency, which is essential for long-term success. Another important element is energy management. Many people think endurance is only about pushing harder, but in reality, it is about managing your mental and physical energy wisely. If you exhaust yourself too quickly, you lose clarity and make poor decisions. But if you manage your energy properly, you maintain steady performance even in demanding situations. This requires awareness of your limits. It requires knowing when to push forward and when to recover. Mental endurance is not about constant intensity. It is about sustainable intensity. Focus also plays a major role in endurance. When pressure lasts for a long time, distractions become more dangerous. A tired mind is more likely to lose focus, become reactive, or drift into negative thinking. To build endurance, you must repeatedly bring your attention back to what matters most, even when it feels difficult. This is why mental discipline is so important. Discipline is what keeps you aligned with your goals when motivation fades. Motivation is temporary, but discipline sustains you through long challenges. Mental endurance is built on the ability to act consistently, regardless of how you feel in the moment. Another critical factor is patience. Under prolonged pressure, people often want quick resolution. They want immediate relief from discomfort. But many meaningful challenges in life do not resolve quickly. They require time, persistence, and steady effort. Patience allows you to stay committed without becoming frustrated by slow progress. It keeps your mind steady when results are delayed. It prevents emotional burnout caused by unrealistic expectations. Resilience is closely connected to endurance. Resilience is your ability to recover from setbacks. In long periods of pressure, setbacks are inevitable. What matters is how quickly you recover and continue moving forward. Strong minds do not dwell on failure. They extract lessons, adjust their approach, and re-engage with the challenge. Every setback becomes part of your training, not a reason to quit. Another important aspect of mental endurance is self-talk. The way you speak to yourself during long periods of difficulty has a direct impact on your performance. Negative self-talk weakens your energy. It creates doubt and reduces motivation. Supportive, constructive self-talk helps you stay grounded and focused. Instead of saying, "I cannot handle this," you remind yourself, "I will take this one step at a time." Instead of saying, "This is too much," you say, "I will focus on what I can control right now." These internal messages help stabilize your mind during extended pressure. Physical well-being also supports mental endurance. Sleep, nutrition, movement, and rest all influence your ability to think clearly under stress. A tired body weakens a focused mind. Taking care of your physical state is not separate from mental strength. It is part of it. As you develop mental endurance, you begin to notice a shift in how you respond to long-term challenges. Situations that once felt overwhelming become manageable because you are no longer reacting to every moment emotionally. Instead, you are operating from a steady, disciplined mindset. You stop looking for quick escapes and start focusing on consistent progress. You stop reacting to temporary discomfort and start committing to long-term growth. Remember this: pressure is not only about intensity, it is about duration, and your ability to handle duration determines your ultimate strength. Mental endurance is built through repetition. Every time you stay focused when you feel tired, you strengthen it. Every time you remain disciplined when motivation is low, you strengthen it. Every time you continue despite discomfort, you strengthen it. Over time, this creates a powerful mental foundation. You become someone who does not break easily, does not quit quickly, and does not lose clarity under sustained pressure. And when your mind gains that level of endurance, you are no longer affected by how long pressure lasts. You remain steady, focused, and effective until the challenge is complete. That is the true strength of mental endurance. Chapter 13. Lead yourself when everything feels uncertain. Uncertainty is one of the most challenging aspects of pressure. When situations are unclear, when outcomes are unpredictable, and when answers are not immediately visible, the mind naturally looks for direction. In these moments, many people rely on external sources for guidance. They wait for reassurance, validation, or instructions from others. But under pressure, external certainty is often unavailable. That is why the ability to lead yourself becomes essential. Self-leadership is the ability to remain stable, focused, and decisive even when nothing around you feels stable. It is the skill of becoming your own source of direction when external clarity is missing. Without this ability, uncertainty leads to hesitation. Hesitation leads to confusion. And confusion leads to poor decisions or complete inaction. When pressure increases and uncertainty rises, most people begin to doubt themselves. They question their choices, second-guess their instincts, and delay important actions in search of perfect clarity. But clarity is rarely immediate. It often emerges through movement, not waiting. Self-leadership is what allows you to move forward, even when clarity is incomplete. At its core, self-leadership begins with responsibility. It means accepting full ownership of your thoughts, actions, and decisions, regardless of external conditions. Instead of blaming circumstances or waiting for things to improve, you take control of your response. You recognize that while you cannot control uncertainty, you can control how you behave within it. One of the most powerful aspects of self-leadership is internal stability. When everything outside feels unstable, your mind must become the anchor. This does not mean ignoring reality. It means refusing to be mentally shaken by it. You acknowledge uncertainty without allowing it to dictate your behavior. Strong leaders under pressure do not depend on constant reassurance. They trust their ability to adapt, learn, and respond. This trust is not blind confidence. It is built through experience, reflection, and repeated action in uncertain situations. Each time you navigate uncertainty successfully, you strengthen your ability to do it again. Another important principle is decision ownership. When you lead yourself, you stop outsourcing decisions to others. You may seek advice, but you do not become dependent on it. You understand that ultimately you are responsible for your direction. This responsibility may feel heavy at times, but it is also empowering. It gives you control over your life, even in unpredictable conditions. Self-leadership also requires emotional regulation. Uncertainty naturally triggers discomfort. The mind dislikes not knowing what will happen next. It tries to fill the gaps with assumptions, often negative ones. Without control, these emotions can influence your decisions. But when you lead yourself, you recognize emotional reactions without being controlled by them. Instead of reacting to uncertainty with panic or avoidance, you respond with structure. You focus on what you know, identify what you can do, and take action based on available information. This structured response reduces chaos and restores clarity. Another key element is maintaining direction without complete information. Many people believe they need full understanding before moving forward, but in reality, most progress happens with partial information. Self-leadership means accepting that uncertainty is part of the process and still choosing to move forward with intention. Think of it like navigating in fog. You may not see the entire path, but you can still take the next step safely if you stay aware, focused, and careful. Waiting for complete visibility often leads to stagnation, while gradual movement builds progress and insight. Self-leadership also involves protecting your mindset. Under pressure, external voices become louder. Opinions, criticism, and conflicting advice can create confusion. A strong leader filters this noise and focuses only on what is relevant. This does not mean ignoring feedback, but it means evaluating it carefully instead of absorbing everything blindly. Another essential aspect is consistency. Self-leadership is not about making one strong decision. It is about maintaining discipline over time, especially when circumstances remain unclear. Consistency creates stability. Stability reduces anxiety, and reduced anxiety improves decision-making. As you develop this skill, you begin to experience a shift in how you handle pressure. Uncertainty no longer feels like a threat. It becomes a normal condition that you are capable of navigating. Instead of feeling lost when answers are not obvious, you rely on your ability to think, adapt, and act. You stop waiting for external clarity and start creating internal direction. You stop depending on others to define your path and start defining it yourself. This does not mean you will always be certain. It means you will always be capable. Remember this: uncertainty is not a sign to stop. It is a condition to lead through. And the strongest form of leadership begins within yourself. As you practice self-leadership, you will notice that pressure loses its ability to disorient you. Even when outcomes are unclear, your thinking remains steady. Even when circumstances shift, your direction remains intact. Even when answers are missing, your actions remain purposeful. Because when you learn to lead yourself, you are never truly lost. You are simply navigating forward with focus, responsibility, and trust in your ability to handle whatever comes next. That is the foundation of mastering your mind under pressure. Chapter 14. Execute under pressure and finish strong. Every challenge, every test, and every moment of pressure ultimately leads to one final requirement: execution. Ideas, preparation, planning, awareness, and mindset all mean little if they are not translated into action when it matters most. The ability to execute under pressure is what separates potential from performance and intention from results. Many people start strong but fail to finish strong. They prepare well, they think clearly, and they even handle early pressure effectively. But as the situation progresses, fatigue, doubt, distraction, or emotional instability begins to weaken their execution. They slow down, lose focus, or abandon their standards. This is where results are lost, not at the beginning, but in the final stretch. Execution under pressure requires consistency when it is hardest to be consistent. It is the ability to maintain clarity, discipline, and focus, even when discomfort increases and motivation decreases. It is not about a perfect performance. It is about sustained effort, aligned with purpose, until the task is complete. One of the most important principles of strong execution is commitment to the process rather than the outcome. When you focus too heavily on the outcome under pressure, your mind becomes anxious. You start worrying about results, consequences, and judgments. This creates mental tension that weakens performance. But when you focus on the process, your attention shifts to the next action, the next step, and the present moment. Execution improves when attention is simple and direct. Instead of thinking about everything at once, you narrow your focus to what must be done right now. This prevents overwhelm and keeps your mind stable. Pressure loses much of its influence when your attention is not scattered across multiple outcomes. Another key factor in execution is emotional control during the final stages. As pressure builds, emotions often intensify. Excitement, fear, frustration, and doubt may all appear at once. If these emotions are not managed, they can disrupt decision-making and reduce precision. Strong execution requires emotional steadiness even when internal intensity is high. This does not mean suppressing emotions. It means continuing to act effectively despite them. You acknowledge what you feel, but you do not allow those feelings to dictate your actions. This is where true discipline is tested. Consistency is another foundation of execution. Under pressure, it is easy to become inconsistent. One moment of focus, followed by distraction. One moment of effort, followed by hesitation. But strong performers maintain a steady rhythm. They do not allow temporary fluctuations in emotion or energy to disrupt their overall performance. They understand that success is not built on isolated moments of excellence, but on repeated, consistent action over time. Another essential element is finishing mentality. Many people lose effectiveness near the end of a task because they assume the hardest part is already done. They relax too early, lose focus, or reduce effort before completion. But in reality, the final stage is often where the most important results are secured or lost. A finishing mentality means staying fully engaged until the very end. It means resisting the temptation to slow down prematurely. It means maintaining discipline even when you feel close to completion. Strong execution is defined by how you finish, not just how you start. Under pressure, adaptability within execution is also important. Situations may change even in the final moments. Unexpected challenges may arise. Instead of resisting these changes, you must adjust quickly and continue performing. Execution is not rigid. It is responsive. It allows for correction without losing direction. Another important principle is trust in preparation. When pressure peaks, doubt often tries to interfere with execution. You may question your readiness or second-guess your decisions, but strong execution requires trust in the work you have already done. Preparation is what stabilizes performance when pressure increases. If you have prepared properly, execution becomes a matter of following through rather than guessing or hoping. Trust reduces hesitation and allows you to act decisively. Energy management also plays a critical role in execution. Under pressure, it is easy to either overexert early or lose energy too quickly. Strong execution requires balanced effort. You must apply enough intensity to perform effectively without burning out before completion. This balance ensures that you remain effective throughout the entire process, not just at the beginning or middle. Another powerful aspect of execution is focus on one task at a time. Pressure often creates mental overload, where the mind tries to manage too many thoughts simultaneously. This reduces clarity and weakens performance. But when you narrow your attention to one action at a time, execution becomes smoother and more controlled. Each completed action builds momentum. Each moment of focus strengthens confidence, and each step forward reinforces your ability to handle pressure effectively. As you continue to develop this skill, you will notice a transformation in how you perform under pressure. Instead of becoming overwhelmed, you become structured. Instead of hesitating, you act. Instead of losing control in the final stages, you become even more focused. Execution under pressure is not about perfection. It is about persistence, discipline, and clarity until the task is complete. Remember this: pressure does not decide your outcome. Execution does. And the quality of your execution determines the quality of your results. When you learn to execute with focus, control, and consistency under pressure, you develop a level of strength that most people never reach. You become someone who not only thinks clearly and decides wisely, but also finishes strongly, no matter how difficult the situation becomes. And that is how you truly master your mind under pressure. Conclusion. You have now reached the end of this journey, but in truth, this is not an ending. It is a beginning of a different way of thinking, deciding, and acting under pressure. Everything you have learned throughout this audiobook is not theory meant to be remembered once. It is training meant to be applied repeatedly in real moments of stress, uncertainty, and challenge. Pressure will not disappear from your life, but your response to it will never be the same again if you consistently apply these principles. From this point forward, you must understand that pressure is not something that selects a few people to defeat. It is a universal force that tests everyone. What separates people is not the absence of pressure, but the ability to remain clear, controlled, and effective while it is present. When you learn to take control before pressure takes control, you reclaimed ownership of your reactions and your thoughts. That single shift alone is enough to change the direction of your decisions in every area of life. When you learn to slow down your mind, you discovered that clarity is not created by speed, but by control. In moments where others rush and panic, you now have the ability to pause internally, observe reality, and think with structure instead of emotion. This is where strong decisions begin, not in urgency, but in awareness. When you learned to eliminate emotional overreactions, you began separating temporary feelings from long-term consequences. This is one of the most powerful mental skills a person can develop. Emotions will always arise, but they no longer need to dominate your behavior. You can feel without being controlled, and you can respond without losing clarity. When you learn to focus only on what you can control, you stopped wasting energy on mental noise. You stopped fighting reality and started working within it. This shift alone removes a massive amount of stress from your mind because it brings your attention back to action instead of frustration. When you learn to replace panic with purposeful action, you discovered that movement creates clarity. You no longer wait for perfect certainty before acting. You now understand that action itself generates direction. Even a small step forward is more powerful than hours of mental paralysis. When you learned to make decisions with confidence and clarity, you stopped expecting perfect information before choosing. You accepted that every decision carries uncertainty, but hesitation carries a higher cost. This allowed you to move forward with trust in your ability to adjust and adapt as needed. When you learned to challenge fear before it controls you, you stopped treating fear as a stop sign and started recognizing it as a signal of growth. Fear no longer defines your limits. It now highlights where your strength must expand. Every time you act in spite of fear, you weaken its control over your life. When you trained your focus like a mental athlete, you gained the ability to return your attention to what matters most, even when distractions and pressure attempt to pull you away. Focus is no longer accidental. It is intentional, practiced, and strengthened through repetition. When you learned to adapt quickly, you stopped resisting change and started responding to it. Instead of breaking when circumstances shift, you adjust your thinking, refine your approach, and continue moving forward. Adaptability became one of your greatest strengths. When you learned to turn pressure into performance energy, you stopped seeing stress as a threat and began using it as fuel. What once felt overwhelming now becomes activation. Pressure no longer weakens you, it prepares you. When you built unshakable confidence through preparation, you realized that confidence is not something you wait for. It is something you construct through effort, repetition, and readiness. Preparation removed doubt because it replaced uncertainty with evidence of capability. When you strengthened your mental endurance, you learned to stay steady not just in moments, but across time. You understood that real strength is not short bursts of effort, but sustained discipline under long periods of challenge. When you learned to lead yourself through uncertainty, you stopped waiting for external clarity and began creating internal direction. Even when situations feel unclear, you now have the ability to stay grounded, responsible, and forward-moving. And finally, when you learn to execute under pressure and finish strong, you understood that results are not determined by intention alone, but by consistent action until completion. You now know how to maintain focus when it matters most, especially at the end, when most people lose control. Now the responsibility belongs to you. Knowledge without application has no power. Everything you have learned in this audiobook becomes valuable only when you apply it in real situations. Pressure will return in many forms, in different moments, and at unexpected times. But your response can now be different every single time. From this moment forward, do not aim to avoid pressure. Aim to master yourself within it. Think clearly when others panic. Decide wisely when others hesitate. Act decisively when others freeze. And continue moving forward when others stop. Because when you master your mind under pressure, you do not just improve your performance. You transform your entire life.